From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Tonight, National Economic Council issues advisory warning against planned protests to mark EndSARS anniversary, notes that federal government is already implementing police reforms and compensating victims of brutality. Vocal clergyman and founder of Citadel Global Community Church, Pastor Tunde Bakare, meets with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa. Supporting more united Nigeria, also confides in the president on his plans for 2023. 10th edition of the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit holds in London. New business opportunities identified for Nigerians, raising hope for more remittances to the country. And long-serving Member of Parliament David Ames stabbed to death in the United Kingdom, sparking fears of the safety of UK's elected representatives. Plus international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's headline inflation rate drops further to 16.63% in September, marking its 7th consecutive month decline.
On sports news tonight, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp questions Premier League's financial fair play rules after Newcastle United takeover.
And from the Federal Capital Territory, some cheery news as the federal government prepares to pay gratuities of 102 ex-Biafran soldiers disengaged after the Civil War.
It's 1 year since the EndSARS demonstrations that took place 2020, and the government is assuring that steps are being taken to address the grievances of victims of the incidents that led to the protests. The National Economic Council has also cautioned those it said are planning the EndSARS remembrance protests to consider alternative means of engagement. Speaking on the outcome of the virtual meeting in Abuja today, Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State said such planned protests could be hijacked by hoodlums.
As it's been the case in recent times, the National Economic Council holds virtually, with the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, presiding. The Council had agreed that states should set up judicial panels to investigate the circumstances surrounding the EndSARS protests that rocked the country in 2020. And out of the 28 states that carried out the resolution, 11 states have submitted their reports. During Friday's meeting, the Council received an update on the reports of the panels and reached some resolutions.
Each state, in collaboration with the federal government, shall establish modalities for the settlement of all monetary compensations awarded by the panels. Already, it has been resolved by NEC. A number of states have set up victims' compensation funds from which several victims have already received payments. So many others will be receiving their payments as the time actually goes. All those detained by the police as a result of the EndSARS protests are expeditiously processed with due regard to principles of fair hearing.
This meeting is held in the same month that the protests hit several parts of the country. The Council issues an advisory to anyone planning to mark the anniversary of the protests.
NEC was also briefed today about some information going out there that there are some planners of these EndSARS protests that are trying to celebrate the 1 year by planning another protest. Therefore, while we appreciate the role of lawful, peaceful protests in advancement of public discourse under democratic governance, NEC urges the organizers of these protests to consider other lawful alternative means of engagement, considering the current security situation across the country and the possibility of such protests being hijacked by armed hoodlums and other opportunistic criminals, to cause mayhem in the land.
The council also directed states and the police to ensure that officers found culpable are dealt with in accordance with the law.
Meanwhile, Lagos State is already compensating victims of police brutality as the Judicial Panel on Restitution for Victims of SARS-related abuses and other matters sitting today awarded a total sum of 91 million naira as monetary compensation to 16 petitioners for the infringement of their fundamental rights by the Nigerian police force. The panel also dismissed the petition for lack of merit. However, just before the presentation of checks, the panel heard cases of some police officers who suffered some form of losses during the EndSARS protest. One of such is ASP Elizabeth Nnaduse, attached to the airport command from Makinde Police Barracks. She says her 21-year-old son, Ukechukwu Nnaduse, was stabbed in the neck and killed inside her flat on the 21st of October 2020, while her house was completely destroyed. The same day, the Lagos State government announced a curfew as a result of the EndSARS protest. The founder of Citadel Global Community Church, formerly Lateran Assembly, Pastor Tunde Bakare, is calling for the adoption of electronic voting in the country. He stated this in a chat with State House correspondents after a closed-door meeting with the president at the State House. He also noted that although Nigeria is better off united as a nation, such unity must be based on equity, justice, fair play, and the rule of law. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mezuke, reports.
The president concluded his week with a visit from his former running mate under the Congress for Progressive's Change in 2011. It's not the first time Pastor Tunde Bakare is visiting the State House, but today he says he came to pour out his heart. In recent times, he's been advocating for restructuring. The much-applauded U-turn on electronic transmission of results by the Senate gained currency in a chat with State House correspondents after his meeting with the president. He primarily wants electronic voting to be adopted.
If we can do not just transmitting results, but to be able to vote electronically, that would be wonderful. It would deepen and enhance our democracy. Not only that, the diaspora send about $25-something billion to Nigeria. Nigerian diaspora should also be able to vote.
He criticized the debate over power rotation, describing it as politically immature, reiterating that restructuring can be done without violence.
We need to do it to move this nation forward. The founding fathers of this nation, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Chief Uwaifo Awolowo, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa, alongside with their entourage in Lancaster House and everywhere, agreed on what type of government Nigeria should have. We must not change the goalposts in the midst of the game. We are better off together as a nation than going at different ways. But it must be based on equity, justice, fair play, and the rule of law.
While asserting that it is more about what the candidate has to offer, regardless of the region. The former running mate of the president in 2011 does not appear in a hurry to disclose his plans regarding recontesting in 2023. Instead, he asked that the best of Nigerians present themselves for future elections. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And to the Judiciary, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has discontinued its suit seeking the forfeiture of the 20 billion naira bailout funds granted to the Kogi State government by Sterling Bank. The money was meant for the payment of Kogi State workers, but was alleged to have been domiciled in an interest-yielding account with the bank. Justice Chukwujeku Aneke granted the order of discontinuance following an application for notice of discontinuance filed and argued by the counsel to the EFCC, who listed 6 grounds upon which the judge granted the application, adding that the EFCC is a responsible body. One of the grounds was that the management of Sterling Bank, where the account was domiciled, had clarified questions resulting in the commencement of the suit, and an intention had been shown to return the sum of 19.3 billion naira back to the Central Bank of Nigeria. Meanwhile, a federal high court sitting in Lagos has granted an order of interim forfeiture of 11 high-end designer items confiscated by the EFCC from internet celebrity Ismaila Mustafa, popularly known as Momfa. The items, 5 luxury sunglasses, 5 luxury wristwatches, and iPhone 8 were seized from Momfa at his arrest by the EFCC on October 19, 2019 at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Justice Louis Alagoa granted the order of interim forfeiture after hearing an ex parte application argued by EFCC counsel. He ruled that the order subsists pending the EFCC's investigation of Momfa and his company Ismalo Global Investment Limited, both listed as respondents in the suit. Since November 2019, Momfa and his company have been facing 14-count charge bordering on allegations of laundering 32.9 billion naira. Outside the shores of the country, dignitaries from across the United Kingdom and Nigeria have gathered in London for the 10th edition of the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit. The platform has become the leading symposium in ensuring that British remittances are allocated to reliable projects within the country. Our London correspondent, Juliana Lainka, has more.
The latest Nigeria Diaspora Direct Investment Summit has taken place in Britain's capital, bringing together dignitaries, captains of industry, community leaders and prospective investors from across the United Kingdom and beyond. The event, which is now in its 10th year, has become a leading platform in attracting international investors into Nigeria.
The diaspora is an extra resource for Nigeria. Millions of Nigerians who live outside Nigeria are called diasporans, and many of us are experienced because we work with other organizations outside of Nigeria. There are opportunities that we want to bring back home, and that is what NDDI is doing.
Chairman of the summit, His Excellency Ambassador Sarafa Tunji Ishola, the Nigerian High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, is keen for Nigerians living in the UK to take advantage of the wealth of investment opportunities available back home.
What I met on ground was a kind of an apathy of British investors in Nigeria. But the various engagements that I've done with various business community, a few days ago, I was with British Expertise International. Before then, I had an engagement with Helen Grant, the envoy trade minister to Nigeria. I also had the opportunity to be present at a bilateral with Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and the message is very clear. The current investment of Britain in Nigeria, which stands at 5th in order of ranking, is not acceptable, and it has to change.
The Governor of Ondo State, His Excellency Rotimi Akeredolu, was the special guest of honor at the event.
I must give credit where it's due. The present government, that's the federal government, haven't set up a particular office. I mean, an office that is directed to deal with diaspora problem, headed by Abike Dabiri. It has changed everything.
Chairman of Nigerians in the Diaspora Commission, Honorable Mrs. Abike Dabiri Erewa, is confident that the summit will lead to deals being made in Nigeria.
I think we're making progress, and in the last 2 years we've had actually Nigerians in the diaspora and friends of Nigeria coming home to invest, and we've seen interest particularly in the area of healthcare delivery, ICT, education, the food business, and agriculture. You know, some are not huge; they're small, but little bits and pieces here and there makes the whole thing big.
Juliana Olayinka reporting for Channels TV News in London.
In part two, after the break, sad news as gunmen abduct twin daughters and an aide of a traditional ruler in Kwara State. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. National Economic Council issues advisory warning against planned protests to mark EndSARS anniversary, notes that federal government is already implementing police reforms and compensating victims of brutality. Local clergyman and founder of Citadel Global Community Church, Pastor Tunde Bakare, meets with President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa, supports a more united Nigeria, also confides in the president on his plans for 2023. 10th edition of the Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit holds in London. New business opportunities identified for Nigerians, raising hope for more remittances to the country. And long-serving Member of Parliament David Ames stabbed to death in the United Kingdom, sparking fears of safety of the UK's elected representatives. Security, where suspected kidnappers have abducted twin daughters of a third-class traditional ruler in Kwara State, including 3 other aides of the monarch in Ekiti local government area of the state, Oba Samuel Adelodun. The traditional ruler's 6-year-old twin girls were reportedly abducted yesterday evening, alongside 3 other aides of the monarch, abandoning the vehicle they were traveling in. Confirming the incident, the police public relations officer, Okasomi Ajayi, said the victims were abducted along Ayegunle Road while they were returning from the children's school. Mr. Ajayi added that anti-kidnapping and other tactical units of the command have been dispatched alongside local hunters and vigilantes to immediately commence a search and rescue operation in the area for the arrest of the abductors and safe rescue of the victims. Meanwhile, at least 12 persons have been reported killed by gunmen who invaded Saki Jiki village in Kaurana Moda Emirates of Zamfara State. A local source told Channels Television that the gunmen arrived in the community at about 9 p.m. yesterday, continued their operation till about 4 a.m. today. Several shops, vehicles and other houses, including building belonging to the police, were said to have been set ablaze. Zamfara police spokesperson SP Mohammed Chehu confirmed the incident, adding that the quick response of police operatives stopped the attackers from recording more casualties. And we head over to our Abuja studios where Terry Kumi brings you more stories. Hello, Terry.
Hi, Millicent. The Military Pension Board has concluded documentation of about 102 ex-Biafran soldiers who were recently pardoned by the president. This is according to the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi, at a briefing to begin the 2022 Armed Forces celebration in Abuja. He said gratuity payment of retired military pensioners are now paid promptly and regularly by the board.
It will interest you to know that the Military Pension Board just concluded documentation of ex-Biafran personnel totaling who are pardoned by Mr. President. The ministry will continue to engage the pensioners through relevant organs like the Nigeria Legion, Veteran Affairs Division, and the Military Pension Board to ensure that government obligations to them are met. Payments of pensions and gratuities to the retired military personnel is now prompt and regular. In line with the anti-corruption stand of the Mr. President administration, the Ministry of Defense, in conjunction with the Military Pension Board, conducts a regular verification exercise for military pensioners. The Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration 2022 is significant at this moment when the military is working relentlessly to motivate its forces and enhance the will of our troops to fight and succumb to the various security challenges in the country.
We go once more outside the country, this time to the United Arab Emirates, where Rwandan President Paul Kagame has been speaking on the need for Africa not to return to the economy of 2019. Mr. Kagame made the striking comment in his keynote address at the concluding day of the Global Business Forum Africa 2021 at the Dubai Expo. The event saw 2,400 in-person attendees and 600 others joining virtually. Our correspondent Mayowa Adegoke brings us more from the event.
We are encouraging joint ventures, even if it's not an obligation. You can own 100% of your company.
Resilience of African economies and opportunities rising in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, bridging African and Emirati entrepreneurs shape conversations at Day 2 of the Global Business Forum Africa.
The pandemic is becoming more manageable. Travel and commerce are beginning to recover. However, we are not going back to the same economy that we knew in 2019. Some of the changes will be profound and lasting. Manufacturing and supply chains will need to become more resilient, more local, and more technologically advanced.
Kagame's keynote, delivered virtually, sets the tone for the day and paves the way for panels on entrepreneurship.
Empowering entrepreneurship, and sometimes that initial push. I think it was great that it took the entrepreneurial journey from the first 5,000 with the Tony Illuminati Foundation to essentially Eleni trying to create an ecosystem and to scale. Nigeria has largely solved its early stage funding issue, but Ghana, Kenya, Ethiopia, like Zambia, South Africa, solved it kind of, but other parts of Africa still need to sort of follow on with that as well.
A recurring topic is Africa's tech-savvy youth, as well as encouraging pockets of tech hubs in various countries and empowering the youth with skills for the future of work. But first,
the work we have to do as Africans ourselves is we have to believe we're equal. First, before we demand it of the world, we have to recognize that even though I might come from the south and you from the west and somebody else from the east, and we might deal with partners from all over the world, we are equal to them. That we are not just recipients of donor capital, and that it's not just donations that we need, but it's determination to build a better future.
Nigeria's absence at the event has not gone unnoticed.
I think it's high time that the young ones take over and forget about the government. And I came here from the UK, and the reason I'm here is to ensure that we can always have this conversation and find ways to pave the way for a younger generation.
I think it's really disappointing, and I'm so glad that where people like us were able to make the summit, and I hope that on the next edition, Nigeria will be officially properly represented, especially as the largest economy in Africa.
And beyond the conversations, business is looking good. At the end of Day 2, 550 B2B meetings have held between UAE Africa businesses and investors, a record for the Dubai Chamber of Commerce since the inception of the Global Business Forum Africa. And that's it on Day 2 from the Expo site in Dubai. Mayowa Adegoke for Channels Television News.
Now over to Washington, D.C., where the International Monetary and Financial Committee, the body that supervises the IMF's work, has agreed to take steps to reach the global vaccination goals of vaccinating at least 40% of the population in all countries by the end of 2021 and 70% by mid-2022. This and other decisions were reached at the meeting of the members at the ongoing annual meeting of the Fund and the World Bank. Our business correspondent Chimezi Obiwagu now reports.
The International Monetary and Financial Committee usually meets twice a year, and for each meeting, the Managing Director prepares a draft agenda that is discussed by the Executive Board, approved by the IMFC Chair, and formally adopted by the IMFC at the meeting. At the end of the meetings, the committee issues a communiqué summarizing its views. These communiques provide guidance for the IMF's work program during the half year leading up to the next spring or annual meetings. This time, the committee is encouraging the Multilateral Leaders Task Force to accelerate access to vaccines and to facilitate coordination among international partners, which includes mobilizing critical financing.
We agreed to channel these special drawing rights on a voluntary basis to the benefit of low and vulnerable middle-income countries. We committed to significantly scaling up the Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust, and this is a critical source of IMF financing to the poorest countries. And the IMFC also expressed support for establishing a Resilience and Sustainability Trust.
The IMF Managing Director, Kristalina Georgieva, emphasized that the voluntary allocation of special drawing rights from countries with strong external positions to countries in greatest need is a historic opportunity to transform economies to make them stronger, greener, and fairer.
Now we have a historic opportunity and a collective responsibility to make the most of this allocation. Countries are already putting the new SDRs to good use, boosting reserves, creating space for spending on vaccines, on lifelines for vulnerable households. And the key is to use SDRs wisely.
As this year's annual meeting of the IMF and World Bank gradually draws to a close, the key message is that strong international cooperation and immediate actions are needed to expedite universal vaccination, to stem the spread of the virus, limit divergences, and support an inclusive recovery everywhere. From IMF headquarters here in Washington, D.C., Chimezie Obiwagu reporting for Channels Television News.
When the news at 10 returns, Nigeria's headline inflation rate drops further to 16.63% in September, marking its 7th consecutive month decline. That's on Business News. Join us again.
We're back with Business News. Here's Taniola Shibowale.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's headline inflation rate has dropped for the 7th consecutive month to 16.63% in September, and that's according to latest data released by the National Bureau of Statistics. The latest decline is 0.38% lower year-on-year than the 17.01% inflation rate recorded in August. However, the NBS report shows that core inflation rose by 0.33% to 13.74% last month. The closely watched food inflation index dropped to 19.57%. Urban inflation rate fell to 17.19%, while rural inflation rates dropped to 16.08% last month. Meanwhile, the Statistician General of the NBS, Simon Harry, says the decline in the inflation rate is an indication of a positive trend and recovery of the economy, considering the current difficult economic situation in the country. International oil price benchmark Brent crude prices jumped above $85 per barrel earlier today, signifying a 3-year high in performance. The price rally was boosted by forecasts of a supply deficit in the next few months as the easing of coronavirus-related travel restrictions drove demand. Meanwhile, its price has slid below that level but was up by 1.07% to $84.89 per barrel at 9:45 p.m. local time, while its contemporary, the US WTI crude, rose by 1.50% to $82.82 per barrel. The domestic stock market is still galloping in positive territory as it maintains the positive trend for a fourth consecutive session this week. Layo Adegoke has the details.
Thank you for joining us for the stock market report. The bull has maintained its dominance at the equities market for a fourth consecutive session, and I must say, what a way to end the week. Well, that bellow tells you that the market recorded yet another round of gain, 0.75% increase for the all-share index and 192 billion naira added to the equities capitalization. It's also green color across the 5 key sectors of listed equities, but Bois Cement, GT Holding and Honeywell were the major factor for the positive performance, particularly on their counter. Meanwhile, the NGX Group, which was listed by introduction today on its subsidiaries platform, emerged as number 1 out of 30 gainers. Chams led 6 other losers, down by 8.33%, while FBN Holdings is still top on the trades list after contributing more than 470 million units to a total of 728.95 million volume of shares. Analysts say if the market sustains this tempo till December, it might come out once again as the world's best performing bourse for the 4th consecutive year for return on investment. We'll keep our optimism on that forecast, but for now, let's savor the bull run. That's the stock market report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Thanks a lot, Layo. Well, major world stock markets also ended Friday's trading session with positive sentiments as investors react to fresh round of better than expected earnings results. Let's take a look at their final figures for the day. And that's business news tonight. I'm Teniola Shuboale. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Teniola. And late music legend Sir Victor Uwaifo has been laid to rest in Benin City, the Edo State capital. The icon died in August at the age of 80. The government, in collaboration with the late Sir Uwaifo's family, organized a 4-day stream of burial activities for the icon, including a day of tribute which saw former colleagues in the music industry, academia, government officials, friends, well-wishers, and family members eulogize the late music maestro.
A day of tributes for music icon, late Professor Victor Uwaifo, opens the doors for mentees, fans, as well as former colleagues to perform in his honor at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City, the Edo State capital. Family members remember how special he was.
Daddy, although you are physically no more, and I take solace in the fact that the results of your good works are everywhere in Edo State, Nigeria, and beyond, which makes you a legend. We love you, Dad. We miss you. And may God bless you and rest your soul in peace.
At the funeral mass a day after, the state government and dignitaries assembled to honor the late music maestro one last time. In his homily, the Catholic Archbishop of Benin admonishes the living on lessons from the life of Sir Victor Uwaifo.
He never gave up on his dream. Age was no barrier for his achievements. He had the will to be great. He had the passion to achieve his dreams. And today we are here to honor him because he did not allow anything to stop his dreams and aspiration.
The government of Edo State recognizes the glory Professor Uwaifo brought the state.
As a mark of honor to this legend, the guitar boy, the government of Edo State have decided that our newly constructed Edo State Creative Hub will be named after him.
Even in death, the strums from his guitar linger. His impact in the creative industry, academics, and governance endures, leaving indelible memories that will remain for a very long period of time. Jessica Lugusan, Channels Television News.
And he lives on in our hearts. Still ahead on the news at 10, long-serving Member of Parliament David Amess stabbed to death in the United Kingdom, sparking fears of the safety of the UK's elected representatives. Plus other international news from our London studio. Please stay with us. And UK politicians have paid tribute to Conservative MP Sir David Amess, who died after being stabbed in his constituency in Essex. Prime Minister Boris Johnson describes the 69-year-old as one of the kindest, nicest, most gentle people in politics. A 25-year-old suspect has been arrested for his murder. Simon Pusey has more on this and other international news from our London studios and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. At least 36 people have been killed and 90 injured after an explosion hit a Shia mosque during Friday prayers in the Afghan city of Kandahar. Footage from inside the Fatemiyya mosque shows shattered windows and bodies on the ground and other worshippers trying to help. The explosion's cause is not yet clear, but a suicide bombing is suspected. The mosque was full of people at the time of the blast and at least 15 ambulances were at the scene. A 25-year-old man has been arrested after a UK Member of Parliament was stabbed to death while meeting constituents. Sir David Ames was meeting constituents at a regular surgery at Belfairs Methodist Church. Essex police said they were called to reports of a stabbing and arrested a man. Aerial footage showed an air ambulance taking off at the scene. Tributes have been paid across social media, with the former Prime Minister David Cameron writing, "Very alarming and worrying news reports coming from Leigh-on-Sea. My thoughts and prayers are with Sir David Ames and his family." Lebanon is holding a day of mourning after 7 people died and dozens were hurt in some of the worst violence for years in the capital Beirut. Gunfire broke out on Thursday during a protest by Shia Muslim groups against the judge investigating last year's huge blast at the city's port. Swathes of the city were devastated by the blast, but no one has yet been held accountable. President Michel Aoun has said that those responsible would be held accountable. He added that he will not allow anyone to take the country hostage to their own interests. Footage shows people cleaning the streets and sweeping broken glass in the capital. Australia's Prime Minister Scott Morrison has said he will now attend the COP26 UN climate conference after weeks of initial hesitation.
I confirmed my attendance at the
Global leaders will meet in Glasgow next month to negotiate a new deal to stall rising global temperatures. Mr. Morrison drew criticism when he indicated last month that he might skip the meeting. Hundreds of students across Australia skipped school on Friday to demand action on climate change ahead of the COP26 summit. Footage shows students marching while holding banners and signs, and others lying down and chanting slogans. The man suspected of killing 5 people with a bow and arrows in Norway has been handed over to medical experts who will assess his mental health. The suspect, a 37-year-old Danish citizen named Espen Andersen Brathen, had converted to Islam, and there were fears he had been radicalized. However, a motive has not yet been determined. A Norwegian court is deciding how long a man suspected of killing 5 people with a bow and arrow and other weapons can initially be held in detention. Police say that a mob in western Kenya has killed a self-confessed serial killer who escaped from custody 2 days ago. Maston Wanjala was traced by villagers to a house in Bungoma town. Authorities had launched a massive manhunt for the fugitive, who admitted to killing more than 10 young boys during a 5-year period. Hundreds of homes and roads have been flooded across Greece due to severe storms that hit the island, killing at least one person as his car was swept away near Athens. Overflowing rivers flooded buildings, streets and hotels on the western island of Corfu. Citizens on the island of Evia, that was previously destroyed by summer wildfires, were also evacuated. Torrential rains caused floodwaters to run through a marketplace in Athens. Flash flooding in 2017 killed 25 people and left hundreds homeless. A new surge in lava flow on the volcanic island of La Palma has fueled fears of further destruction and forced more evacuations from local residents. This fast-flowing river of hot lava caused around 300 more people to leave their homes as flows of molten rock threatened to engulf another area. It has been 26 days since the volcano began to erupt, and there is still no sign of the crisis easing. And finally, British singer Adele has made her highly anticipated music comeback, releasing her first new record since her 2015 Grammy Award-winning album, 25. Easy on Me, an emotional ballad, has been released, offering fans the first glimpse of her album, entitled 30. It sees Adele explaining her decision to walk away from her marriage in 2019, while asking her son and ex-husband for their understanding. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel studios in Lagos.
Welcome to Sports News. The 6th National Youth Games has been officially flagged off in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. Dignitaries, sports ministry officials, state representatives and athletes representing their various states were all in attendance. Over 4,000 young athletes across the federation will participate in the games. To England now, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp is not pleased with the Newcastle United takeover, as he has questioned Premier League's financial fair play rules for permitting such a move. Klopp believes that Newcastle will now become a new superpower in European football, as this move will guarantee them European football every season because of the quality of the players they can sign.
This is kind of creating a super team, if you want. It's pretty much the same. Guaranteed spots in the Champions League, not in a few years' time, not immediately, all these kind of things. Yeah, with all the how financial fair play is used nowadays, well, nobody knows exactly is it still existing or not, stuff like this. So it's like it is. So everybody knows that. The Newcastle fans will love it, of course. But for the rest of it, it just means there's a new superpower in Newcastle.
Staying in England, Manchester United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has confirmed that Marcus Rashford is fit to return to the Red Devil squad for the trip to Leicester City. The England forward has been absent since the final of the Euro 2020 after undergoing a shoulder surgery. Rashford could now be in line for his first appearance of the season as Solskjaer's side travelled to King Power Stadium. And league leaders Bayern Munich prepare to face Bayer Leverkusen at the Bay Arena on Sunday in the Germany Bundesliga. The game is seen by many as a big test for the Bavarians, who continue their rebuilding process under the new manager Julian Nagelsmann. Bayern Munich will be without goalkeeper Sven Ulreich, while there are doubts over the availability of France internationals Kingsley Coman and Corentin Tolisso, while French defender Benjamin Pavard is suspended. That's it on Sports News.
And the main news again. The National Economic Council today issued an advisory warning against any protest to mark EndSARS anniversary, explaining that the federal government has begun implementing police reforms and paying compensation to victims of brutality. That's your news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Mwaka. Stay safe. Have a great weekend.